Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating topic, Gujarat, under Narendra Modi. Think of Gujarat not just as a state, but maybe as a kind of political and social laboratory, a place where, well, significant experiments were conducted and patterns emerged that would later shape the entire trajectory of India. Our mission today is to really get into the heart of Gujarat's identity, explore its evolving political landscape, understand the socio-economic transformations it underwent, and dissect the distinctive governance style that emerged under Modi's leadership. We'll be drawing directly from the detailed research you provided to understand not just what happened, but crucially, why it matters for contemporary India.
Exactly. And while our focus is squarely on Gujarat, you'll discover that the historical context, the political strategies, the societal shifts we discuss, they offer a crucial lens for understanding the broader forces at play across the nation. We'll trace how deep-rooted identities intertwined with political ambition to forge a very, very particular model of governance.
So let's kick things off by exploring the foundational elements of Gujarati identity, often referred to as asmita. Our sources reveal that this regional ethos wasn't just about, say, economic values. It also carried a rather exclusive emphasis on Hindu Vaishnavism. We're talking about powerful movements like the Pushtimarg Sampradaya and the Swaminarayan movement, especially the Bodhisanwasi Sri Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha, or BAPS, a prominent Hindu sect that gained massive support from the Patidars, a key landowning community in Gujarat.
Right.
These movements, our sources tell us, propagated a kind of Gujarati religiosity in which uniformity and homogeneity are the ideal.
What's truly remarkable here is how early literary figures like Narmad and Dalpatram began to imbue this Gujarati asmita with a distinct ethno-religious content. Narmad's poem, Koni Koni Che Gujarat, which translates to Whose is Gujarat, is a fascinating example. While it offered an outwardly inclusive definition, it also subtly attributed the decline of Gujarati culture and knowledge to Muslim rule. You can see how that laid some crucial early groundwork for later political dynamics, right?
Definitely. So this evolving identity, promoting Hindu values against a perceived Muslim other, actually led Gujarat's majority community to invest its subnationalism in national parties, like the Indian National Congress, rather than solely focusing on regional forces. That seems, well, a bit counterintuitive on the surface.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. This then raises an important question. How did key figures within the Congress in Gujarat interact with these evolving identities, especially when they carried such strong ethno-religious undertones? Take Vallabhbhai Patel, for instance. Our sources show he initially supported the pan-Islamic Caliphate movement, viewing Indian Muslims as fellow countrymen whose ancestors originally belonged to India and were converted from Hindus. Yet he also voiced concerns to Gandhi about cultural differences, like Muslims eating meat while Hindus were vegetarians.
That's a powerful point, suggesting this wasn't a straightforward issue.
Precisely. And Patel's attitude shifted significantly after the Muslim League separatism gained traction in the 1940s. Allegations even emerged of him tolerating communal instigation.
Yes. After independence, as Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister, he went further. He suggested support for anti-Muslim militias and famously pushed for the reconstruction of the Somnath Temple, despite objections from Gandhi and Nehru, and with strong backing from Hindu nationalists.
And it wasn't just Patel. K.M. Munshi, a prolific novelist who was instrumental in shaping Gujarat's political culture, also played a significant role. His novels, like Gujarat No Nath, essentially eulogized Vedic India, blaming disunity among Hindu and Jain kings for succumbing to Muslim invaders. This presented a rather potent vision of exclusionary upper caste martial and male Hinduism.
Munshi's personal journey is quite telling. He joined Congress but never fully embraced Gandhi's nonviolence. At one point during an inquiry into the Bombay Hindu-Muslim riots, he even suggested Hindus should retort Muslims in kind.
Wow.
He was a vocal opponent of the Muslim League, campaigning for Akhand Hindustan, or United India, and openly received backing from the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, a Hindu nationalist volunteer organization. He even addressed their volunteers to teach fearlessness to the Hindus.
So he was quite aligned with them.
Increasingly so. He eventually left Congress, joining the economically liberal Swatantra Party, underscoring his preference for traditional Hindu values over Nehruvian secularism.
So where did this broader surge of Hindu nationalism truly begin? Our sources point to the Arya Samaj in Punjab, which served as a kind of melting pot for the Hindu Sabha. This then evolved into the Hindu Mahasabha in 1915, effectively forming the right wing of the Congress.
And this movement really rekindled in the 1920s, largely as a reaction to a perceived Muslim threat, particularly after Muslim mobilization during the Khilafat movement. This is a crucial moment because it's when V.D. Savarkar codified Hindu nationalism in his seminal 1923 work, Hindutva, Who is a Hindu?
Right, the foundational text.
Exactly. Soon after, Hedge Warno founded the RSS, focusing on grassroots work through local branches, known as shakas, for young Hindu men, emphasizing martial games and ideological training. By 1947, the RSS had about 600,000 volunteers, though its subsequent head, M.S. Golwalkar, initially made apoliticism a mandatory rule.
Okay, so fast forward to the mid-1990s. We see a new political era emerging with the Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, a Hindu nationalist party, really beginning to dominate Gujarat politics. Our sources indicate this rise was significantly fueled by a strategic embrace of communal polarization.
What's particularly striking about this is that the Sangh Parivar, the collective of Hindu nationalist organizations, including the RSS and BJP, had gradually honed its expertise in fostering communal tensions since the 1960s.
Since the 60s?
Yes. The 1969 riot in Ahmedabad, for instance, was the deadliest Hindu-Muslim violence since partition, claiming 660 lives. By the mid-1990s, Ahmedabad had accumulated riot-related casualties second only to Bombay. This widespread communalization of the public sphere was a truly key factor in the BJP's electoral success.
And it wasn't just about religion, was it? The BJP also cleverly integrated caste into its strategy. Initially seen as more of a Banya Brahmin party, it consciously accommodated Kshatriyas, with figures like Shankar Singh Vaghela becoming general secretary and later president of the state BJP. The party also significantly increased its proportion of OBC or other backward class candidates in Vidhan Sabha elections, demonstrating a strategic OBCization in contrast to its traditional upper caste base. So they were really broadening their appeal.
Precisely. And knowing all we've just discussed about the strategic embrace of polarization and caste, how did this blend of communal and caste politics actually play out in the lead-up to the devastating events of 2002? Our sources show it led to a really paradoxical situation where the Sangh Parivar not only promoted a strong, unified Hinduism, but also presented itself as the sole defender of the majority community against what they portrayed as a Muslim threat, often linking them to local mafias.
So with all these historical currents building, the stage was set. And then at the very center of it all was Narendra Modi, who had just become chief minister in 2001.
That's right.
Our sources highlight that the BJP was under considerable pressure to perform in the upcoming 2003 state elections, which in hindsight probably explains why communal polarization became particularly relevant and intense in 2002.
And the timing was indeed crucial. Just 3 days after Modi was confirmed as chief minister on February 27, 2002, a flashpoint ignited in Godhra, where 59 Hindus were tragically burned alive aboard the Sabarmati Express.
A horrific incident.
Truly. This then ignited a spasm of widespread violence across the entire state.
The subsequent mass violence was extreme, and our sources detail some truly disturbing accounts. The attack on Goldberg Society is a stark example. Eyewitnesses reported former MP Ahsan Jaffrelot made repeated, frantic calls for police assistance for hours against a murderous mob. Despite 3 mobile police vans being present nearby, they did not intervene for 9 hours.
9 hours.
Yes. By that time, 69 people, including Jaffrelot, were killed, and the chief minister was reportedly well informed about the violent crowd outside Jaffrelot's house.
The nature of these assaults and the alleged state complicity raised some very troubling questions. Attacks were described as military-like, involving thousands of disciplined men in basic uniforms, khaki shorts, and saffron headbands carrying daggers, swords, and trishul.
Organized, then.
Seemingly very organized. They also used gas cylinders, with a pre-violent shortage suggesting premeditation. Crucially, our sources reveal that the ringleaders had computer printouts based on voter registration rolls, indicating Muslim homes and businesses to be targeted.
That's chilling. Targeted lists.
Yes, and testimonies from attackers themselves were chillingly consistent. Police shut their eyes and their mouths, provided cartridges and even weapons, encouraging them to do something, loot them, break them, finish them. Several top civil servants anonymously admitted that senior politicians were directly or indirectly involved.
And the chief minister's reported directives reveal a very clear stance. He stated that the Godhra incident could not be tolerated, that police had for too long been following the principle of balancing the actions against the Hindus and Muslims, and that this time the situation warranted that the Muslims be taught a lesson.
Taught a lesson. That's stark language.
It is. He further expressed that emotions were running very high among the Hindus, and it was imperative that they be allowed to vent out their anger. A police official was also explicitly instructed not to concentrate on the Sangh Parivar as they are not doing anything illegal.
So, effectively hands off the Hindu nationalist groups.
That seems to be the implication. Law and order, incredibly, was only fully restored after 2 months of firm and even-handed measures by the army. It's hard to truly grasp the scale of that alleged state complicity and the sheer brutality described in our sources.
Indeed. And as deeply unsettling as those details are, they become crucial when we look at how Modi strategically leveraged that post-riots religious polarization. Despite internal BJP criticism and calls for his resignation from figures like Vajpayee,
Right, there was pushback.
there was. But Modi had an opinion poll showing the BJP would win 2/3 of the seats if elections were held. He then dissolved the assembly in July 2002 and immediately called for early elections, even though violence continued and many Muslims were still living in refugee camps.
And the government quickly closed these camps to demonstrate a return to calm.
Exactly, a move to project normalcy.
This period also saw alleged stage-managed incidents. In June 2002, Modi declared that RDX and AK-47s had been recovered from a madrasa, leading to arrests of Muslim youths. However, an intelligence report 3 months later indicated that these firearms were manufactured in a factory owned by local politicians supporting religious organizations and were planted on the arrested Muslims. That's a really stark detail, suggesting a manufactured narrative.
It absolutely is. And what really stands out is how these very strategies honed in Gujarat prefigured Modi's national politics. His 2014 election campaign, for instance, included a massive portrait of Lord Ram, visits to Hindu temples, and appearances with religious figures like Baba Ramdev.
The symbolism was very strong.
Very strong. He chose Varanasi, the spiritual capital, to contest elections and advocated for Ram Raja, or the ideal rule of Ram. He also strategically allowed others to make openly polarizing statements while cultivating an image of moderation for himself.
A kind of double act.
You could say that. This culminated in his central role as chief guest, master of ceremonies, and official yashman at the Ram Temple Foundation Stone laying in August 2020, positioning him as the high priest of the majority community.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Moving beyond the political and social landscape, let's dive into the Gujarat model of economic development.
Right, the famous model.
Gujarat traditionally boasted industrial dynamism and a strong capitalist structure. However, in the early 2000s, it faced a declining growth rate and a significant financial deficit. Modi's government responded to this with a 10-point plan to relaunch the economy in December 2001.
The crucial detail here is the distinct shift in economic focus under Modi. He heavily prioritized infrastructure development in areas like power, ports, and roads, actively courting the private sector.
So big projects, private money.
Pretty much. The Gujarat Infrastructure Development Amendment Act of 2006, for example, allowed for competitive bidding, direct negotiation, and substantial financial support, including subsidies of up to 40% of total project costs for private developers.
40% subsidies, that's huge.
It is. The state also offered significant tax deductions and other fiscal subsidies to large investors, increasing sales tax incentives nearly fivefold, effectively foregoing 40% of its main revenue. This model was clearly designed to be extremely attractive to large corporations.
This pro-business stance extended to land policies, which our sources highlight as particularly illustrative.
Yes, the land policies are key.
The government removed prohibitions on urban dwellers buying agricultural land and liberalized the sale of common pastoral land, or gauchar, and wasteland, specifically designating it for corporate and industrial use. This was a clear choice favoring industry and industrialists at the expense of agriculture.
A definite trade-off.
This approach was epitomized by the biennial Vibrant Gujarat Summits, which successfully attracted major Indian capitalists like Anand Mahindra and Ratan Tata, who openly lauded Modi as the Vikas Purush, or development man.
Stepping back, Gujarat was also a pioneer in special economic zones, or SEZs.
Ah, yes, SEZs.
It was the first state to pass an SEZ Act in 2004. The appeal of these SEZs, according to our sources, was partly due to their more flexible labor market provisions, allowing for easier exit, more flexible provisions on hiring and terminating labor, and the concept of fixed-term employment.
Easier hiring and firing, essentially.
That's a big part of it. This led to what Modi's former professor called a corpo state, where a handful of crony capitalists became influential oligarchs, creating corporadoms that could effectively operate with limited democratic oversight.
A prime example of this close nexus, mentioned in the sources, is the relationship between Modi and Gautam Adani.
A very prominent example.
Adani pledged massive investments, and his Adani port and SEZ at Mundra was granted thousands of hectares, including forest and grazing land. Crucially, investigations allege this land was acquired at incredibly low prices, ranging from 1 to 32 rupees per square meter when market rates were over 1,500 rupees.
1 rupee compared to 1,500.
Or, in another instance, 10 rupees per square meter when the market price was between 700 to 800 rupees. That's essentially pennies on the dollar for prime land, suggesting a colossal benefit to the private developer at state expense.
It certainly raises questions. The Comptroller and Auditor General, or CAG India's apex audit institution, also criticized irregular land transfers and the state's purchase of electricity from Adani at abnormally high prices.
So this supply-side policy, prioritizing the private sector, lowering corporate taxes,
Right, from 30% down to 22% for existing companies.
abolishing the wealth tax, and dramatically increasing indirect taxes.
This clearly prefigured Modi's national economic strategy after 2014. But this raises an important question. Was this Gujarat model truly a success for everyone?
Well, there's a significant debate among economists. Jagdish Bhagwati and Arvind Panagarya viewed the Gujarat model as a primarily growth and private entrepreneurship-driven development that would broadly benefit society.
The trickle-down argument, basically.
Yes.
However, Amartya Sen and John Drez countered this, arguing that Gujarat exemplified growth without development. While per capita income growth was remarkably high, the poverty reduction rate was not as satisfactory as in other states, with 31.8% of Gujaratis living below the poverty line in 2011.
That's nearly a third.
Yes. Gujarat also had some of the lowest average daily wages for casual laborers in urban areas. This isn't just growth without development. It's a stark illustration of how a singular focus on big industry and corporate welfare, even when yielding impressive GDP numbers, can actively widen the divide between the haves and have-nots,
Right.
leaving vast swaths of the population, especially the informal sector, behind. The real insight here is how this model prioritizes capital over labor in its very design, setting a dangerous precedent for national policy.
And the impact on small and medium enterprises, or SMEs.
Which are crucial for jobs.
Exactly, 4 times more labor-intensive than big enterprises.
Yeah.
The impact was deeply troubling. A study showed their non-performing assets grew by 43.9%, largely due to increased gas and electricity prices and poor financial support from local banks.
So they were squeezed.
It seems so. Between 2004 and 2014, 60,000 MSMEs shut down in Gujarat. That's a massive loss of local businesses and jobs.
60,000. That's a huge number. The employment picture further complicates things. The growth rate of jobs did not increase in proportion to the state GDP under Modi, and the quality of jobs did not improve.
Stagnant formal jobs, rising informal jobs.
Precisely. Formal employment remained almost stagnant, while informal employment increased significantly, representing 84.1% of the working force in Gujarat by 2009-10, a rate higher than Maharashtra. The share of contractual work in the informal sector also rose sharply, highlighting a shift towards precarious employment.
This growth without development picture is starkly visible in social indicators beyond employment. Gujarat came last among 17 Indian states in child normal weight, only 43%.
Last. That's shocking.
And the CAG indicated a third of children remained underweight. The rural-urban gap in infant mortality rate also exceeded the national average during Modi's last term as chief minister.
If we consider the broader implications, this urban bias also impacted critical resources like water. While the Narmada Dam eased water stress, the canals hadn't reached all fields, with priority often given to industry in cities.
Water for factories before farms.
That was often the outcome. Furthermore, prime agricultural land was given over to industry, sometimes harming peasants, as seen in the Mahua SEZ dispute, where a cement plant threatened a village's water tank. This aligns perfectly with the minimal state ideal of Hindu nationalist ideologues.
Low public spending.
Low public expenditure, low fiscal pressure on the corporate sector, which by extension reflects a tolerance for profound inequality. Modi even famously criticized the National Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, or MGNREGA, a program aimed at rural employment, as a monument to the failures of previous governments.
Right, preferring entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Fostering entrepreneurship instead.
So, the Gujarat model undeniably led to both communal and social polarization, with growing divides between urban and rural, and rich and poor. What really stands out here is the persisting question of how Modi maintained widespread support despite these policies, which brings us to his consolidation of power. Narendra Modi's sustained popularity, even amidst growing socioeconomic divides, can be understood through his rapid concentration of power and his distinct approach to governance. He quickly brought the bureaucracy and even elements of the Sangh Parivar firmly under his authority.
What's truly illuminating here is the direct impact on the bureaucracy. IAS officers, officers of the Indian Administrative Service.
The top civil servants.
Yes, they reportedly observed a system of punishment or reward for those who supported or opposed the Hindu majoritarian agenda during the 2002 riots. A record 11 IAS officers resigned between 2001 and 2008 due to what they described as Modi's autocratic style of functioning.
11 resigning is significant.
Highly unusual. Our sources indicate that the chief minister's office was reportedly reduced to merely making PowerPoint presentations. And Modi insisted officials jot down his viewpoint in official file notings.
So direct control over official records?
It appears so. He cultivated a personal entourage of loyal civil servants, some of whom were later given key national posts after he became prime minister.
He also asserted control over other components of the Sangh Parivar. He had a fierce rivalry with Praveen Tagadia, the powerful Vishva Hindu Parishad, or VHP, leader.
The VHP, a prominent Hindu nationalist organization.
Right. Modi actively undermined the VHP by, for example, destroying Hindu temples in the name of an anti-encroachment drive.
Destroying Hindu temples. That seems counterintuitive for a Hindu nationalist leader.
It does, but it suggests consolidating power was paramount. His government even appealed for the death sentence for riot convicts like Babu Bajrangi and Maya Kodnani, despite VHP protests. Although the demand for Kodnani's death sentence was eventually abandoned, this shows a very deliberate effort to centralize power around himself.
And it wasn't just the VHP. The Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, or BKS, an RSS offshoot and the largest peasants' union in Gujarat. They also clashed with him. Yes, they became a determined opponent of Modi's policies, particularly his almost 250% hike in electricity prices.
250%, wow.
They organized boycotts and accused the state of burdening farmers with power shortages. This naturally leads us to ask, how did Modi manage to bypass traditional party and ideological structures to consolidate such personal power?
Part of his strategy involved sophisticated image building. Our sources reveal his government hired APCO Worldwide, a prominent U.S. PR firm, in 2007 to manage its public relations and the vibrant Gujarat summits.
EPCO, the international PR giant.
Yes. They even identified journalists who could become media ambassadors for Gujarat. This powerful PR machinery undoubtedly contributed to what our sources describe as his quasi-permanent mobilization of the public.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, despite his highly personalized style, Modi eventually gained the crucial backing of the RSS leadership by his third five-year term in Gujarat.
Why then?
Primarily due to his perceived winnability, his ability to attract not only upper caste and Patel voters, but also other backward classes or OBCs, and his embodiment of an effective brand of modern leadership.
So results mattered most to the RSS.
It seems his electoral success was key. This then meticulously set the stage for his national leadership, where he replicated these very strategies, including bringing trusted Gujarat bureaucrats into central government positions.
Beyond the economy and internal party politics, Modi's governance also involved a significant deinstitutionalization of the rule of law.
What does that mean exactly?
It means systematically weakening the independent bodies that uphold justice and accountability, like the police and judiciary, and bringing them under political influence to serve a specific agenda.
Yeah.
Our sources indicate that in the wake of the 2002 riots, a clear strategy emerged to politicize these crucial institutions to avoid any meaningful inquiry.
This involved sidelining professional policemen who had done their duty in 2002 while promoting others. A new politics of fear emerged, targeting alleged jihadi terrorists through fake encounters or extrajudicial killings.
Fake encounters, that's a serious allegation.
Very serious. Cases like Sadiq Jamal and Ishrad Jihan involved police officers who, according to sources, acted on political instructions, enjoying extra-hierarchical accessibility and closeness to Minister of State Shri Amit Shah and Chief Minister Shri Narendra Modi.
Direct links alleged there.
Yes. Witness intimidation was so common that some cases had to be transferred out of Gujarat. This effectively created a narrative of a terror threat, especially targeted at Modi, which helped to whip up Islamophobia.
The search for justice for the 2002 victims was fraught with immense challenges. NGOs aiding victims faced significant state hostility.
Making their work incredibly difficult.
Yes. First information reports, or FIRs, police complaints were often not registered, evidence was lost, and potential witnesses intimidated. Public prosecutors were sometimes openly RSS sympathizers or VHP advocates.
Compromising impartiality from the start.
It appears so. Even when the Supreme Court intervened by appointing a special investigation team, or SIT, and ordering arrests of some figures, the SIT's subsequent closure report virtually exonerated Modi and top police officers, a decision that victims continued to challenge. It paints a picture of systemic hurdles for justice.
What's truly striking here is the broader impact on Gujarat's institutions. Our sources show Gujarat lagged significantly behind other states in terms of police vacancies, so understaffed police, severely. Only 55.9% of sanctioned posts filled in 2012, forcing reliance on paramilitary forces during elections. There was also strong resistance from Modi's government to the appointment of a Lokayukta, an anti-corruption ombudsman.
The state watchdog.
Right, as proposed by the High Court Chief Justice. This led one judge to declare that the chief minister's actions were pranks that demonstrate destruction of our democracy and threaten the rule of law.
Strong words from a judge.
Extremely strong.
This erosion of democratic norms extended to legislative bodies themselves. The Gujarat State Assembly met for significantly fewer days than in previous decades, an average of just 30 days a year between 2007 and 2012.
30 days a year. That's barely a month of legislative work.
Exactly. And critical reports, like those from the CAG or Human Rights Commission, were often tabled only on the last day, severely limiting public discussion.
A way to bury inconvenient reports.
This pattern, our sources note, starkly prefigured how the Indian parliament would be sidelined after Modi became prime minister.
If we consider the deeper implications, surveys show that a substantial predilection for non-democratic forms of governance was evident among a large proportion of Gujarat society, particularly the middle class.
Yes. Many voters, it seems, accepted Modi's dictatorial style as a sign of his authoritarian personality.
So a tolerance for authoritarianism grew.
That's what the sources suggest. This rise of an illiberal political culture in Gujarat, therefore, made Modi's governance model more acceptable to the state society. Now, let's turn to the societal impacts of these political and economic transformations. While the BJP aimed to integrate all Hindu castes, traditional Congress vote banks among Dalits, Adivasis, and Muslims largely continued to support Congress.
So those groups didn't shift to the BJP.
Not significantly, according to the sources. This is linked to their socio-economic situations and the persistent communal undertones of BJP campaigns.
Indeed. Dalits and Adivasis, who comprise some of the most vulnerable sections of Gujarati society, particularly in rural areas, frequently faced eviction from their land. Gujarat's performance in social indicators like education, consumption, and poverty reduction for these groups was often average or even below average compared to other Indian states.
So not benefiting from the model.
Doesn't look like it. Budget allocations for Dalits were disproportionately low, and their indebtedness, especially in rural areas, increased significantly.
And the situation for Muslims in Gujarat was particularly dire. Our sources describe a process of othering and ghettoization, accompanied by socioeconomic and educational decline and deep political marginalization.
Systemic marginalization.
This was evident in policies like the initial discriminatory compensation for 2002 riot victims, where Hindu victims received twice the amount of Muslim victims, a decision that later had to be reversed due to public outcry.
Twice the amount. That's blatant discrimination.
It was later corrected, but it happened initially.
What's particularly revealing here is how cultural policing by Hindu vigilante groups, often in coordination with the police, contributed to this marginalization.
Cultural policing? Like what?
Campaigns against love jihad, that term used for alleged interreligious marriages aimed at converting Hindu women, and cow slaughter, led to routine anti-Muslim activities. Our sources cite a VHP office bearer openly stating their teams worked in close coordination with the police during Bakra Eid.
Police coordination with vigilantes.
That's the claim. Modi himself, in 2003, used sarcastic remarks when referring to Muslim-majority areas like Jaipura in relation to power theft, further contributing to their stigmatization.
And the legal framework itself was used as a tool for control. The 2003 Freedom of Religion Act required explicit permission for religious conversion.
Making conversion difficult.
Yes. Between 2011 and 2016, over half of these applications were rejected, with a striking 94.4% of applications coming from Hindus, mostly low-caste individuals seeking to convert to another religion.
So it wasn't really about preventing Hindus from being converted to, but Hindus converting out.
That's what the data suggests for that period.
Interesting. The urban bias in Modi's development model also had a significant social impact on slum dwellers. Ahmedabad witnessed aggressive slum clearance drives.
Making way for development projects.
Often, yes. Official estimates of slums decreased due to denotification, essentially changing their legal status rather than actual improvement. Displaced residents were relocated many kilometers away from the city, often losing their jobs and livelihoods.
So, out of sight, out of mind.
It had that effect. Gujarat was the only state where the number of slums reportedly fell between 2001 and 2011. But the conditions of slum dwellers deteriorated, with more than a third of slum houses lacking latrines. The Sabarmati Riverfront development, a project designed explicitly for the middle class and imitating Western cities.
A beautification project?
Right. It resulted in what one scholar called the evisceration of rights for the poor.
What we've unpacked today paints a truly complex and, frankly, revealing picture of Gujarat as a laboratory under Narendra Modi. We've seen how its ethno-religious identity, political consolidation through communal and caste strategies, a distinct pro-business economic model, and a highly centralized populist governance style all intertwine to shape the state.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these 5 main pillars of Modi's politics in Gujarat: communal polarization, the deinstitutionalization of the rule of law, a big business-oriented economic strategy at the expense of SMEs and the informal sector, a highly centralized personal power, and a distinctive populist repertoire. They clearly prefigured his approach at the national level after 2014.
They really did.
These are powerful patterns that continue to shape the political and social landscape of India today.
This deep dive really reveals how a specific blend of historical context, strategic political moves, and targeted socio-economic choices dramatically reshaped a state, setting powerful precedents for the nation's future. It challenges us and you to look beyond simple narratives and understand the deeper, often uncomfortable forces at play.
Which leads to an important question for you, the listener, to consider. Knowing that these policies and political styles were honed and perfected in Gujarat, how does this knowledge impact your understanding of contemporary India's governance, its economy, and its social dynamics? What stands out to you as the most surprising or perhaps the most thought-provoking detail from this deep dive?